I might lose some people with this video, but whatever. I want to talk about how Suda51 games are woke by accident. So let me start this video off by defining what the word woke even means and where it actually came from, because there seems to be a lot of confusion around this these days. The word woke originated in the black community as far back as the 1900s, from thought leaders like Marcus Garvey encouraging his people to wake up, to writers like William Kelly, who wrote the New York Times article in 1961 titled, "If You Woke, You Dig It," which was funnily enough about how white people take black slang and try to use it as their own. And then finally, it was fully popularized in modern times by Erykah Badu and Georgia Ann Muldrow on the song Master Teacher, with the main lyrical refrain being, "I stay woke." Childish Gambino added on to this as well on the song Redbone, but by this time it was already established, especially within the black community. The term means to just be aware of the world around you, culturally, spiritually, and of course, politically. So if you were telling people to not eat certain foods because it blocked their spiritual healing process or something, you were woke. If you were telling people that the government was poisoning our food, you were woke. It was a term about being conscious and thinking deeper. But now it has just come to mean anything that seems left-leaning or progressive. And I'm emphasizing the word seems here for reasons that will become more clear as the video progresses. And look, I get it. Words evolve over time, but for this video, depending on the context, I'll be jumping back and forth between the original definition of the word woke and the modern view of the term in an attempt to be clear while still paying homage to the original true meaning of the word. So, with that out of the way, what do I mean when I say Suda51 games are woke by accident? Well, let me tell you a story about Suda51's 1999 ADV game, The Silver Case. The Silver Case is a game that has you investigating a series of connected cases, and there's one particular moment in this game that I think helps explain the core idea behind this video. During one of the game's cases, you and your team are watching leaked footage of a Japanese pop star named Bayan. Someone somehow planted a secret camera in her room. While you and your team are watching the footage, the guys are making sexual comments about her body, hoping that they'll get to see her expose herself more at some point in the video. The next day, we find out that Bayan threw herself off of a roof and died because of the world seeing the leaked footage. And this is the conversation that happens with your crew after they find out the news. Morigawa says, "I bet you recorded it, didn't you?" Nakatagawa says, "Of course, I had to at least break even." Hachisuka responds and says, "Gross." Morigawa, "As a woman, you sympathize with her, right?" Hachisuka, "Not especially, I'm not interested." He then emphasizes how messed up the situation is and asks her why she doesn't feel sorry for Bayan. Hachisuka says, "Should I? It was her job, wasn't it?" Morigawa responds and calls her a cold bitch. And finally, Hachisuka says, "Please don't refer to me as a bitch." This conversation encapsulates what I mean when I use the phrase woke by accident. A crew of men objectified a woman who was wrongfully exposed. One of them even recorded the footage. The same man asked the only woman in the crew whether she empathizes with Bayan. And even the woman says she doesn't empathize because she feels like that's what you sign up for when you become famous. He calls her a bitch, and now as a woman, she takes offense to that and tells him to not call her that. This is an incredibly layered and honest interaction. The objectification and harassment of women is a problem that needs to be addressed. Men understand this, but still participate. Women understand this as well, but every woman doesn't necessarily empathize and see themselves in every woman. The dichotomy of Hachisuka lacking empathy for Bayan while not wanting to be called a slur herself shows you that women have several layers and don't have to be perfect humans to want and deserve humane treatment. It addresses the issue of misogyny, but in a way that feels natural and sincere. Woke by accident. But here's the kicker. The accident part isn't just about Suda's intentions or lack of intentions. It's about the timing and context of when these games released. The Silver Case and the other two games I'll discuss all came out before non-black people found the word woke, and before certain political and social issues like gender equality and racial diversity became a bigger part of the zeitgeist. This allows us to analyze Suda51's intentions in a different historical context and without the cynicism that you might get from, let's say, angry nerds who get mad every time they see a woman or a black main character on the screen. Oh yeah, let's talk about Killer 7. Killer 7 was directed by Suda51 and was originally released on the GameCube in 2005 in collaboration with Capcom. The game is about Harmon Smith's 7 assassin personalities, with the main personality being Garcian Smith, a black man. Why is this important to point out? Well, it's important because in 2005, before topics like diversity in video games became a bigger deal, Killer 7 had an original black main protagonist, not a licensed character or a real-life personality put into a video game, not a supporting character. Garcian Smith is considered the main character, or rather, the main personality of Killer 7, however you want to look at it. Mind you, CJ from San Andreas was a thing. We can even take it back to Mavis Beacon typing in 1987 if you want.
Welcome to typing class. I'm your teacher, Mavis Beacon.
But my point here is that this was much more rare at the time, especially with the context that Suda51 is a Japanese developer. Eisen Sasaki, one of the designers on Killer 7, has even said, quote, "I had black culture in mind when we were working on Killer 7, proper hip-hop and R&B. On top of all this, the rest of Killer 7's cast is the literal definition of diverse. Harmon Smith is a person with a disability. Coyote and Mask Day Smith are both Hispanic. Kevin is white. Kaede is a Japanese woman. Con Smith is Chinese American. And through reading multiple interviews about this game, seeing the types of characters Suda51 included in past games, and just understanding the time period of Killer 7's release, it is very clear that the diversity of this cast happened for very simple, sincere reasons. The game takes place in America, one of the most diverse countries on Earth. So seeing this combination of people makes sense, especially for someone looking at America from the outside. And similar to what I discussed in my video about hip-hop in Japanese games, I do find it interesting how people outside of America can sometimes portray America more holistically than actual Americans at times. Even San Andreas was made by British people. But anyway, let me also say this. Suda51's accidental wokeness doesn't mean that Suda never thinks about social issues or politics when making games. Killer 7 is very overtly political, and Suda has explicitly stated in several interviews that he was compelled to talk about the political relationship between Japan and America in this game. In an interview with GameDeveloper.com specifically, Suda was asked about his opinion on politics in games, and he said it was, quote, "impossible to eliminate politics from Killer 7's worldview because of how they shaped the characters. In this respect, you can kind of say that Suda has also been woke on purpose when you consider the original true definition of the word woke, but still woke by accident when you view it through the modern, cynical, gentrified interpretation of the word. Example being anything that seems implicitly progressive, even if it isn't explicitly progressive, like a black person being a main protagonist of a game. But like I said, this is not just about analyzing all the different ways that Suda51 approaches social and political issues within these games. It's also about looking at the totality of Suda51's output so we can better contextualize his woke by accident-ness. What do I mean by this? Let's circle back to the GameDeveloper.com interview I discussed earlier. In this same interview, when asked about politics in games, he did say that he felt it was necessary for Killer 7. But he goes on to also say that for No More Heroes, since it was a story about a lone hitman, there was, quote, no need to talk about politics.
No more heroes, no time just to stand. If you're gonna be number one.
Travis, it's kill or be killed.
No More Heroes is another action game series directed by Suda51. It's among my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I want to talk about how this series has a different worldview from the games we've brought up so far. No More Heroes is not as serious as something like The Silver Case, and not as political as Killer 7. In fact, in many ways, it goes in the other direction. No More Heroes objectifies women, glorifies violence for the sake of violence, and in No More Heroes 1 specifically, the main protagonist, Travis Touchdown, is not tied to any greater socio-political cause like saving the world or working on behalf of the government. He is just a nerdy otaku who got caught up in an assassination competition. Even with No More Heroes, though, that doesn't tell the whole story because, yes, the games do objectify women, but they also poke fun at male sexuality, specifically within nerd culture. The game has you doing a very suggestive action to charge your beam sword. Travis is portrayed as a broke loser who's desperate for women, and throughout the game, you get a series of voicemails that really help drive this point home.
Just calling to let you know that one of the videos returned yesterday wasn't one of ours. It doesn't have a label on it, but it seems to be a recording of a guy humping a pillow. The video you should have returned was, How to Please a Woman in Bed 101 Part 2. Please return it to us soon. Thank you.
The series also has an interesting, diverse cast of characters, with one of my favorite characters being Shinobu Jacobs, a black woman who was the youngest assassin in the UAA and one of the most important characters in the series to the point of being playable in No More Heroes 2. Suda51 has even stated that they flirted with the thought of giving her her own spin-off game. In No More Heroes 3, there's even an unlockable hoodie that says F racism. And mind you, No More Heroes 3 came out in 2021, after the idea of wokeness had entered the mainstream consciousness. But this hoodie's inclusion was mainly a result of Suda including collaboration costumes in the game from the real-life fashion brand Glam. And this brand made this hoodie in collaboration with Nobuaki Kaneko, the composer of No More Heroes 3. In other words, this was something that happened organically, and if you know Suda51's history, this is totally in line with how he goes about things like this. He included something like that hoodie because he was collaborating with an already established brand, and the message of the hoodie is harmless. He created a character like Shinobu Jacobs because she was just cool.
When the gatekeeper to hell asks who sent you, tell him it was Shinobu Jacobs.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy your trip.
No More Heroes is hedonistic because he wanted to make a game that didn't take itself too seriously. Suda51 just follows his earnest instincts and isn't trying to align with anyone else's preconceived idea about what he should do. And when you look at No More Heroes in the context of the rest of Suda51's output, this becomes even more clear. Killer 7 had a diverse cast of characters because he wanted to tackle the idea of a character having multiple personalities. Plus, it took place in America. And the fact that it released in 2005 eliminates any assumption that it could have been done to quote-unquote pander to people. The Silver Case has these nuanced interactions about politics, social issues, and even feminism because it is essentially a story about criminology, a social science that will naturally have these things come up. Suda51 is woke by accident in the sense that he was approaching these types of topics during an era before there could have been any kind of cynicism around why he was doing it. In addition to that, the way he was approaching these topics was done in a soulful, sincere way. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what being woke is truly about. Comment if you have thoughts. Support if you like and subscribe to support. It's GK. Peace out.